4. May 1958. Oberhausen, Ruhr Valley. Anna Kettner writes in her shopping notebook, "We have more food than in any year since 1938. We are not allowed to ask what the empty chairs at our table paid for this comfort." The sentence stands alone. It could not have been spoken in the market. It could not be printed in the local paper. It could be scrawled in a private book, tucked between a grocery list and an account of the butcher's prices. It functions as a small comma between past and present. It functions as accusation and contract. Short sentence, short sentence, short sentence, Hong. Then history expands. 8 May 1945. The Arithmetic of Rubbles and Returns. 8 May 1945. Essen. The city is a map of absence. Whole blocks are missing. Whole families are missing. A child counts empty windows. A widow counts missing siblings in a photograph that is grey with ash. Rubble is measured in tons, in cubic meters of broken brick and timber and plaster. Trümmerfrauen. Women in headscarves and boots. Shovel, wheel, burn. They are measured in hours of labor. 6, 8, 10. They are measured in the municipal registers of displaced labor. Names, addresses, hours worked for food coupons. The city files register who handed over which piece of salvaged pipe to which new municipal heating project. The mathematics of reconstruction is precise. Tons needed per building, per street, bricks per square meter, hours of labor per collapsed facade. Food is arithmetic too. The winter of 1945 had rationed bread at 200 grams a day for adults in some sectors. Cigarettes function as currency. One smoked the economy. A cigarette buys a boiled potato, a shirt, silence. Occupation reports note that cigarette currency undermines formal markets. An Allied occupation report dated 14 June 1945 from the British military government in Mönchengladbach lists weekly tobacco allotment per person as a primary stabilizer of labor compliance. Families return to empty apartments. Names appear on lists of the missing, brothers not found, fathers in POW lists in Marburg and Hamburg, mothers whose names were taken by deportation records. The municipal registry in Dortmund. Einwohnermeldeamt 21 August 1945 records households downsized by absence. Müller, Karl, wife, Anna, children, 2. Husband's brothers listed MIA. MIA is a small rectangle on a ledger that resists closure. Occupation forces enter. American jeeps on the Ruhr Valley roads. British motorcars in the streets of Gelsenkirchen. Curfews are posted in German and English. Curfew forces a new arithmetic of movement and commerce. A man can be absent from home between curfew hours for work if he carries a permit. Permits are indexes of trust. They are countersigned. The Allied intelligence summary dated 27 May 1945 describes anxious crowds awaiting food trucks in the central market, notably women with children. Fear of retribution hangs in the registers. Interrogation reports, terse, bureaucratic, compile names of municipal officials who carried local Nazi titles into surrender. A denazification interrogator writes 9 June 1945, Town Clerk B claims he only kept records, was not an ideological leader. Denies membership more dangerous than listed. The handwriting is flat. The page lists his party membership number. The arithmetic of culpability begins on such pages. 2. Winter 1946-47. The mathematics of hunger. Winter 1946-47. Snow in the courtyard, coal piled behind barbed wire. The hunger winter returns to municipal memory after 1945. Ration cards thinned, bread lines lengthened. A municipal food allocation report for Bochum, 3 March 1947, gives precise weights. Bread allotment, 150 Gade. Potatoes allotment depends on agricultural yields. Urban shortfall estimated at 40%. Black markets thrive. An Allied liaison noted on 21 February 1946 that Schwarzmarkt transactions range from coal to sugar to American cigarettes used as currency. A female witness recorded in an oral history project in 1973, "We traded our mother's wedding ring for a sack of flour. I wondered if we'd signed away more than jewels." The arithmetic of survival is brutal. Rings and buttons traded for daily bread. The economy of barter is an equation of need. Children were thin. A pediatric report from a parish clinic in Duisburg, 12 February 1947, lists rickets cases rising and average weight below pre-war norms by 12%. Hospital ledgers read like budgets. Hospital administration files from St. Maria, Essen, note that milk shortages cause altered feeding rotations, priority nursing mothers and infants. The result is that domestic life is reorganized around scarcity. Cigarettes are counted by occupation officers. Photographs taken by the US Army show Turkish and Polish forced laborers lined against a wall, hands in their pockets for warmth, while local German men smoke. The cigarettes are small denominators in a larger calculation. Workforce retention, black market flows, barter economies, and the intersection with guilt. 2. 1945–1948. Denazification and the arithmetic of guilt. Denazification is paperwork. The Spruchkammer system is an arithmetic of categories and signatures. It is also policing tempered by pragmatism. The Allied Control Councils issue questionnaires. The Fragebogen, the 31-question form, arrives in thousands of households. It asks for dates, titles, memberships. The Bundesarchiv holds memberships. The Bundesarchiv holds millions of these forms. The categories are explicit. Hauptschuldige, major offenders; Belastet, offenders; Minder belastet, lesser offenders; Mitlaffe, followers; Entlastet, exonerated. The Spruchkammer hearing in Oberhausen for Karl Müller is catalogued in Acta NR. 5846. The forms are blunt. Karl states, "I was a member of the NSDAP from 1938 to 1945. I held the post of workmeister in the coal works. I was never a political leader. I followed orders." The clerk's ink notes, Mitlaufer suggested, awaiting testimony. The arithmetic of guilt is not moral alone, it is logistical. The Allied occupation needs functional administrators. Factories need engineers. Coal mines need managers with experience. A Spruchkammer decision in Düsseldorf, 2 February 1947, exonerated a mine supervisor with a Minder belastete classification, assigning a temporary fine instead of imprisonment because reinstatement expedites energy production. The logic is explicit in occupation reports. The cost of purging competent managers is instability. Many, like Karl, recast memory. Letters in the municipal archive record phrases, "I was only a cog. I could not have known. I had no political power." Families reproduced the same grammar. A denazification interrogator's summary, 11 September 1946, writes, "Repeated pattern, deflection to necessity, minimization of ideological participation." Spruchkammer hearings are small, theatre-like. Defendants stand before panels that are themselves inconsistent. Former exiles returning as chairs, former opponents, neighbors who had complicated ties during the regime. Decisions are negotiated. Results vary. The mathematics of punishment is blunt. Fines, labor obligations, occasionally prison. But more often, paperwork suffices. An occupation intelligence summary of 18 January 1948 notes the political calculation. It records a meeting in which a British official observed, "Denazification must not destroy the administrative skeleton of German life. We must avoid political chaos." This arithmetic of guilt explains why many local desk drawers contain both party parchments and permissions to operate a bakery. It explains why the men who had organized wartime factories continued to sign invoices in the same rooms now lit by oil lamps and then later by electric bulbs paid for on credit. IV 1945 W950. Displacement, expulsion, and the arithmetic of rooms. Autumn 1945 into 1946. Trains arrive at smaller stations where the platforms are not yet cleared. Expellees from Silesia, Pomerania, East Prussia step down with bundles and improvised household goods. The Municipal Housing Office in Essen notes in an October 1946 report, arrivals from the East registered 12,300 in 7/8 since July. Housing capacity insufficient by 3,200 rooms. The arithmetic of roofs is simple and painful. A house with 4 rooms now contains 9 people. A kitchen table is measured not by place settings but by an index of needs, hunger for 1, 2, 3. The expellees bring stories of loss and violence. They bring overseas accents and different currencies. They bring memories of borderlands that no longer exist. Tension grows. Local registries note complaints, evictions requested by returning owners who registered earlier claims. A municipal reconciliation report, 16 November 1946, reads, "Tensions observed between Einheimische and Heimatvertriebene." Municipal authorities apply temporary housing orders in nearly all cases. The arithmetic of jobs follows rooms. Labour offices record applications stacked on the counters. 5 applicants per advertised job in late 1946. The coal industry, hungry for manpower, calls many. The textiles mills take others. The social calculation is pragmatic. Someone must work in the factory. Someone must clear the rubble. The expellees are both a resource and a problem. A British intelligence memorandum, 22 March 1947, states, "The influx of Heimatvertriebene presents the immediate challenge of rationing and potential civil disorder if employment not arranged swiftly. Kitchens become complex negotiations." A letter from an expellee woman in a registry folder dated 3 December 1946 pleads, "We share a room with 4 others. My children are ill. My husband's hands are burned from factory labor. We need coal." Coal allocations are adjusted. Priority lists are recompiled. The arithmetic of scarcity forces municipal officials to make calculations of priority. War widows first, families with children second, expellees third, single men fourth. The lists are both administrative tools and instruments of moral judgment. V. 1946-1949. Contact with the victims and the geometry of denial. Displaced persons. Camps sit near German towns. Former forced laborers, concentration camp survivors, displaced Jewish families from Eastern Europe occupy barracks outside of towns. Together, the camps, the towns, and the factories form a geography of contact and avoidance. Reports file in from DP camps near Belsen and near Recklinghausen. Allied intelligence dispatches list incidents of contact between local German youth and DP members. A report, 5 May 1946, notes that barbed wire is both barrier and vantage. Germans passing must register. Local shopkeepers sometimes trade with camp inhabitants, but social contact remains limited. Moments of realization occur in sparse ways. An oral testimony recorded in 1960 by a woman named Liesel, who lived in a neighboring apartment block in 1946, recalls going to the DP camp once to deliver soup. She writes, "I saw a man with no hair and a number on his arm. He would not look me in the face. I felt my stomach turn. I had read nothing, I had heard nothing, I had believed in my house that the war's worst had been done elsewhere. Her words are small but decisive. They describe a fracture in the household assumption. Other testimonies record the opposite. A neighbor who says he saw Jewish camp workers and photographed them for identification. A municipal complaint file dated 2 August 1946 contains a citizen's letter. They parade the victims too close to our schools, and a response from an Allied officer. Re-education includes exposure. The policy is necessary. The contact between perpetrators and victims is stubbornly adult. Occupation memoranda from the American Office of Military Government, 28 September 1946, chart patterns. Many Germans claim ignorance. Others express anger that victims remain near their homes. The DP presence complicates restitution. Restitution itself is arithmetic. Burial plots allocated, lists of property returned, compensation calculations in Deutschmarks. The Wehrmacht Pension Office reports cases where property restitutions are impossible due to prior sale. Legal files note that criminal trials of SS officers proceed in Nuremberg and in lower courts, but local justice is uneven. A prosecution file in Essen, 13 November 1947, notes a stalled case against a former Gestapo officer because key witnesses live in displaced persons, camps out of jurisdictional reach. Contact also produces small acts of care. The Municipal Health Office in Wuppertal lists in November 1946 a program of medical aid to a DP camp. Vaccinations, children's rations, vaccines financed by UNRRR. These acts are both humanitarian and symbolic. They are arithmetic in allocation, doses per person, calories per day. Many Germans, including middle-class families in the Ruhr, adopt strategies of selective memory. School books are edited. The 1949 state textbook for history in North Rhine-Westphalia begins with the war as the catastrophe that befell the German people and devotes scant space to systemic extermination. Commemorations focus on the dead of the aerial bombardments and on the suffering of expellees rather than on the victims who had been murdered. The arithmetic of remembrance is lopsided. VI 1947-1949, The Marshall Plan and the Mathematics of Aid, June 5, 1947. The Marshall Plan is announced. Relief is no longer only humanitarian, it is economic. The European Recovery Program funnels commodities, machines, and investments. Crates of canned goods, tractors, and loans arrive. The mathematics of foreign aid is complex, dollars converted into machinery, supplies, and credits. Ship manifests list items, 10,000 barrels of soybean oil, 200 tractors, 5,000 sewing machines. The Bundesarchiv store of customs lists the entries. A municipal ledger in Essen, 29 September 1948, notes allocation of Marshall shipments to municipal cooperative stores. Factories reopen. New machinery lifts productivity calculations. Steel mills in Duisburg re-enter the production chain. The arithmetic of employment changes. Mechanization reduces certain manual jobs but increases output. A factory director's file dated 14 October 1949 rejoices in increased production yields by 37% compared with 1948. The numbers hum in municipal budgets. The Marshall Plan is also a political calculus. Officials measure ideological returns as well as metrics of coal and steel. An American intelligence summary dated 2 March 1948 notes, economic stabilization will shorten the window for Soviet influence. The Cold War is arithmetic too, grams of propaganda, tanks, stationing of Allied troops. The Bundesrepublik's integration into Western economic structures is negotiated in ledgers and treaties. VI 1949, The Federal Republic and the Arithmetic of Amnesties, May 23, 1949. The Federal Republic of Germany is proclaimed. Political arithmetic shifts. Amnesties are considered. The economy needs stability. Electoral politics require a citizenry willing to participate. A law in 1951, the Anerkennung der Vergangenheit initiatives, adjusts the consequences of denazification. Papers in the Bundestag archive show debates about reintegration versus punishment. Municipal mayors who had been members of the party find ways back to offices. Karl returns to a desk job in 1950 under a new municipal title. His Spruchkammer file, Akte 15846, is stamped Minder Belastate 46, fee imposed, reinstatement authorized 12 March. The arithmetic of amnesty is a function of political calculus. A Potsdam Occupational Memorandum, dated 7 July 1950, notes the practical need to replace temporary officials with stable local governments able to manage urban growth. The new republic offers legal frameworks that privilege order, economic recovery, and political containment of leftist alternatives. The 8th, 1950 W1111, The Household as Microeconomy, the Housewife and the Refrigerator, 1950s. The household becomes an axis of consumption. The domestic economy now participates in a broader capitalist revival. Advertising grows. Television arrives as a medium. The first post-war West German television broadcasts resume in 1952 in Bonn, and then extend gradually. Housewives sit before black and white sets when families can afford them. The housewife is a central figure of the new economy. She is measured by labor hours saved and by appliances bought. The first refrigerators in the Ruhr homes are sold on credit. The Municipal Consumer Credit Ledger in Oberhausen notes a spike in appliance purchases from 1955 onward. A local bank's minutes, the 3rd February 1957, rectangle stamped, increase in small consumer credits, appliances major sector. Anna Kettner's refrigerator, the one whose opening line starts this narrative, is emblematic. She buys it on installment. She records prices in a grocery notebook, fridge down payment, DM20, monthly, DM15. In 1958 she writes, "We have more food than in any year since 1938. The achievement is both economic and symbolic. Food is abundant enough to be stored. The household now separates itself from ration lines and coal queues. The mathematics of consumption is precise. Appliance manufacturers publish units sold per month. Advertising agencies calculate aspiration indexes. An advertising copybook from 1956 instructs, sell the possibility of comfort, not merely the product. The arithmetic is psychological. Hours saved washing clothes equals more time for homemaking, equals greater emotional stability, equals reproduction of social order. Television advertisement enters domestic life. Spots for coffee and soap are measured by airtime cost, reach, and frequency. A station schedule from WDR, 12 March 1957, lists a 10-minute program segment followed by sponsorship, Bosch refrigerators. The household receives constant reassurances. Consumption leads to normality. IX. The mathematics of memory, school books, commemoration, and silence. School books become vectors for specific narratives. The 1952 history primer, Unsere Heimat, frames the recent past within a schema of suffering and reconstruction. It devotes pages to the bombing of German cities and the suffering of the Heimatvertriebenen. The exterminations, the camps, the mechanics of genocide appear as fragments. Teachers' guides advise sensitivity. The arithmetic of remembrance, how many pages, how many classroom hours, is telling. Public commemoration follows suit. A memorial erected in Oberhausen in 1954 lists civilian dead from air raids and expellees' names. Plaques are dedicated to all victims without easy differentiation of perpetrator and victim. Municipal commemorative minutes from 18 November 1955 state, "Commemoration will focus on the losses of our citizens and the resilience of our city." The files do not list Jewish victims separately. This is not oblivion so much as selective attention. The arithmetic of memory is a partitioning, what to remember, what to forget, what to enshrine. It is also a function of power, who writes the textbooks, who sits on committees, who holds the podium. The post-war generation in schools grows with a set of narratives that make the past into manageable proportions. X. Contact, commerce, and complicity. Karl's work. Karl's job after 1950 illustrates the logic. He is not an SS officer. He is a workmeister, a factory foreman who had been a party member. He returns to a reconstructed production line in a newly modernized plant in Gelsenkirchen. The plant's balance sheets show investment in automation. Karl's daily duties change. He signs for parts, meets suppliers, deals with a new generation of workers, including some expellees and those who had previously been under foreign labor. His personnel file shows an awkward mixture: the Spruchkammer verdict, a later municipal commendation for exemplary management in 1953. A letter from the Municipal Employment Office in 1952 recommends him as able to supervise the new production shifts. The arithmetic is practical. The plant needs reliability. The plant needs reliability. The plant needs managers who will not challenge the new organizational order. Karl's conscience is variable. A denazification interrogator wrote, "Subject expresses no remorse beyond that which can be expected from a loyal citizen." Karl writes privately in a notebook occasionally. One entry, 14 August 1951, reads, "I signed forms in 1942. I followed orders. Today I sign invoices. They are not the same." He thinks of the men who used to work in the outer yards and are now gone. He remembers names he never mentioned aloud. In his file, the names sit as lines. Transferred 1943 to Eastern Territory. No return. At work, commerce and production blunt moral calculus. The factory ledger moves in decimals. Tons of steel, hours of operation, profit margins. The municipality sits in the background, making decisions about housing allocations for incoming guest workers from Italy and Greece in the late 1950s. A 1956 municipal council minutes record offers for guest worker contracts. The arithmetic of labor now includes quotas, contracts, and the recruitment of foreign labor, which itself recasts local economies. XI, 1955 to 958. From shortage to surplus, the arithmetic of the consumer boom. 1955. Currency stabilization and economic policies in the Federal Republic produce growth. The Wirtschaftswunder becomes narrative buzzword. Production figures are bright. A steel output report in 1956 reports growth of 42% since 1950. Wage numbers climb. Unemployment falls. Statistical yearbooks list new indices: household appliance ownership per 1,000 inhabitants, television ownership per 100 families. Domestic life transforms. Households that once shared communal laundries now talk of automatic washers. Supermarkets expand. A Ruhr supermarket listing from 1957 advertises shelves stocked with canned fruits, coffee, soap, sugar. Anna's refrigerator is a public emblem of that change in the microeconomics of family life. The arithmetic that once calculated calories per head now measures cubic feet of refrigerated space and number of preserved meals. Credit becomes a social technology. Consumer loans are extended by savings banks. A bank circular from 1956 explains consumer credit structured for household appliances. Installment purchases become normal. The accounting is steady. Down payment, monthly installment, interest. Families plan. Advertising moves into the domestic and moral sphere. An ad in a 1958 magazine shows a smiling housewife with the caption, "Modern comfort makes for contentment." The copy implies that consumption equals stability. Television dramatizes domestic harmony. A 1958 TV schedule from ARD includes nightly programming with commercial spots for detergents and appliances. The arithmetic of aspiration is encoded, hours of needed leisure, purchases to fulfill desired social identity. 12. The mathematics of forgetting and the mechanics of silence. There is a "we drew a line under the past" mentality. It is statistical and social. Its elements are calculable. For many communities, the cost of sustained moral examination is measured against the immediate benefits of economic recovery and political stability. Municipal leaders calculate the potential for riots, for nationalist unrest, for Soviet agitation. They prefer reintegration to prolonged trials. They prefer families fed, roofs repaired, taxes collected. The result is layered silence. Families do not speak of certain names. Records are sealed. Some documents are intentionally misplaced. A municipal archivist's note from 1954 explains files pre-1939 destroyed in bombing, certain dossiers missing because of reorganization. The pattern of missingness has shape. Silence has its own arithmetic. Pages unfiled, testimonies not recorded, minutes skipped. Oral histories in the 1970s note that several neighbors did not talk about it. People change the subject when the camps are mentioned. The household norm is to keep the focus on what is practical: coal delivery, school fees, the new washing machine. The arithmetic of silence is not total denial. It is a division of attention. 13. Contact zones, compromise, and small acts. Compromise appears in small acts. In 1953, a municipal welfare report lists voluntary aid to DP camps by local bakeries. In 1957, a municipal committee organizes a reconstruction festival that invites both local Germans and expellees. The files show that gestures of cooperation occurred. Yet the files also show that compensation payments to Jewish survivors were slow, often stalled by bureaucratic obstacles. A letter preserved in the Bundesarchiv, dated 11 March 1952, from a Jewish survivor living in Munich reads, "I have applied for restitution for the apartment that belonged to my family in 1939. I have waited 3 years and have received no substantive reply. The office asks for more proof. Bureaucratic procedures create distance. The arithmetic of reconciliation is rendered slow by forms. Some Germans engaged in private acts of atonement. A coal miner, Hans Becker, is recorded in an oral history. I used to bring bread to a man in the DP camp because I ate more than I needed. He called it helping neighbor. He did not name the man. Public acknowledgement remained rare. The mathematics of private compassion is informal, episodic, and unrecorded. 6.4. 1955 to 1958. Television, advertising, and the new moral economy. Television becomes a living room mirror. It reflects a nation consuming. A 1958 program schedule from WDR shows prime time filled with comedies and newscasts that treat economic matters positively. Television advertisers sell not only products but stability. They place images of smiling children, stainless kitchens, and appliances that make life easier. Advertising copy takes on moral tones. Soap is framed as cleanliness that restores dignity. A detergent ad from 1957 claims, "Clean clothing, clean home, clean future." The rhetoric is implicit. Consumption equals purification. The arithmetic of moral renewal is thus commodified. The household becomes a site where silence can be managed by the purchase of comfort. Anna's refrigerator stands in this economy as an instrument that keeps meat fresher and also keeps questions colder. XV. Personal files, Spruchkammer decisions, and the arithmetic of reintegration. Karl's municipal file gathers dust and signatures. It records a Spruchkammer decision, a municipal rehire, a promotion in 1954. His name appears on building permits and on a 1956 tax declaration. The file is a ledger of ordinary life after extraordinary events. It shows more than guilt. It shows labor, bread, and credentialing. The Spruchkammer system, by the mid-1950s, is reconfigured. Many former Mitläufer are now exonerated. A parliamentary report from 1956 quantifies this. Of 1.2 million denazification hearings processed by 1955, approximately 60% resulted in classification as Mitläufer or Entlastet. The arithmetic of rehabilitation is statistical. It is a process that produces governance-ready citizens. But numbers conceal intimate costs. Karl remembers men he supervised who had vanished. He signs invoices for coal and thinks of a name on a ledger that now reads deceased. He understands that his normalcy is partly enabled by the absence of other men. He is grateful in small ways and uneasy in others. He privately complicates his resume. He writes in a spiral-bound notebook, "We are permitted to live. We are permitted to forget." The entry is short and repeated. XVE. Public memory, museums, and the post-war narrative. Museums in the 1950s curate a particular kind of national story. Exhibitions emphasize bomb damage, refugee artifacts, and peacetime reconstruction. Official narratives underscore victimhood of the German people, while systematically underrepresenting the mechanics of genocide. The Bundestag archives collect minutes of cultural committees that debate the design of museums. A 1956 internal report states, "Exhibitions should foster national recovery and unity." Parallel to this, federal prosecutions of high-profile perpetrators continue, but their public salience diminishes among growing consumer optimism. Trials produce documents, indictments, and long sentences for some, but for many everyday facilitators, legal conclusions are limited. The arithmetic of trials is not equivalent to the arithmetic of memory. Ex-Simtine, a household ledger, credit, food, and domestic numeracy. Household ledgers become a medium for private accounting. Anna lists items in her notebook: sugar, 2 kg, DM4TT, milk, 10 liters, DM32T, refrigerator monthly payment, DM15. Each line reveals a calculus of comfort. Each entry is a negotiation between desire and payment capacity. The ledger is precise. The ledger is precise. The ledger is a small public record of what the family values. Anna jots another line in 1958. "We have more food than any year since 1938. She underlines it. Underlining is a punctuation of triumph and of anxiety. The domestic arithmetic has shifted from grams of bread to preserved leftovers and the surplus comfort that allows 2 guests to be offered slices of cold meat. But Anna's ledger also contains an unspoken line: vacancies at the table, chairs empty, chairs that might have been occupied by brothers sent east or by men who did not return. C8. Education and the new generations. Children growing up in the 1950s inherit screen images and simplified histories. Their books instruct them in civic virtues. A civic instruction pamphlet, 1957, printed in Dusseldorf, lists Democracy's Duties. It contains few pages on the origins of the Third Reich, teaches balance between fostering civic pride and avoiding political trauma as per the Cultus Ministerium directives. Many young people encounter the past through family anecdotes: one uncle missing, one aunt with scars, a neighbor who had been publicly shamed. But the deeper systemic knowledge of extermination, deportation centers, of the bureaucratic machinery of killing is often learned later in university lectures or in the memoirs of survivors. The arithmetic of generational knowledge is thus delayed. XIX. The Cold War, NATO, and the Arithmetic of Alliance. 1955. West Germany joins NATO. The arithmetic of security now overlays domestic calculations of guilt and amnesty. The state recalibrates its political universe. Military reintegration of a nation into a Western bloc requires social cohesion. Internal divisions about the past become politically inconvenient. Federal policies prioritize anti-communism and economic growth. Allied intelligence reports show that Western planners viewed reintegrating former civil servants as essential to resisting Soviet influence. The arithmetic of the Cold War features ledger lines, troops stationed in the FRG, dollars and marks transferred for infrastructure, and domestic stability as a barometer for alliance health. Denunciations of wartime crimes decline in public priority, not always in private conscience. XX. 1958. The refrigerator door and the counts in the margin. The kitchen light falls across Anna's notebook. She opens the refrigerator. The hum is audible. Food stored: 3 bottles of milk, 2 jars of jam, cold cuts wrapped in wax paper. The inventory is arithmetic: kilos, liters, packets. She writes the sentence again. We have more food than in any year since 1938. We are not allowed to ask what the empty chairs at our table paid for this comfort. The phrase "not allowed" resonates. There are legal permissions and social prohibitions. Credit records add to the ledger. The bank file shows Anna's installment plan. The household now participates in a debt economy. Debt is microeconomic faith. The bank trusts the household's revenue stream. It counts wages, number of family members in the workforce, and future job stability. The family counts domestic purchase as an investment in normality. Behind the refrigerator's cooling system hum the region's wider calculations. The factory where Karl works exports components to a plant in Hamburg. The plant's order book is brighter this year. The municipal tax office anticipates increased revenues from consumer purchases. The household's well-being is woven into macroeconomic indices. XXX. The buried names, records, and remnants. Karl's desk drawer contains a list. Scrap paper with names, dates, and asterisks. Some names are circled. He uses it to remember which men worked certain shifts in 1943. He takes it out sometimes, at night. The list is a ledger of miscess.